Intro Algebra Lesson 2-7B. We were working on changing division to multiplying by the reciprocal, and we're going to continue to do that, but this time we're going to actually add in some variables. So variables are replacing numbers. They're kind of placeholders for those numbers, those unknowns, which means whatever we can do with numbers, we should in fact be able to do with the variables, the letters, since they represent numbers. So our first example says 13y divided by 1/8. We should write this one as a fraction. And our practice was to change division into multiplication as long as we were willing to flip the reciprocal of the second value. 13y over 1 is now being multiplied by 8 over 1. And fractions multiply straight across. Now somebody will say, but Corey, how can you multiply 8 times 13y? They don't have like parts. They don't have to have like parts for multiplication. They have to have like parts for addition and subtraction. These two can just multiply straight across. 8 times 10 is 80. 8 times 3 is 24. If you add 80 and 24 together, you get 104. You still have the y. So it's 104y over 1. And anytime you have 1 on the bottom, it's really just whatever's on the top. So 104y is your final answer. They're both positive, so my answer stays positive. Alright, now you have a negative being divided by a positive. So you already know in this case that the answer better be negative when we're done, because they're not the same sign. Whenever your negative sign is in the middle, I would recommend you give it to one of the top or the bottom. It's up to you. It does not matter. If you want to give it to the top, give it to the top. So we have negative 3r over 7, and instead of division, we will multiply by the reciprocal, 6 over 5. Now I'm looking for anything I can that'll cross simplify. Numbers that go into 5 are 1 and 5. Neither of those go into 6 or this negative 3, so I can't do that. Numbers that go into 7 are 1 and 7. Well, 1 and 7 don't go into this and change anything, so nothing is going to cross simplify. I must just multiply straight across. 6 times this negative 3 makes negative 18r. And on the bottom, 7 times 5 is 35. Now I will caution you. What some people do, and they make a big mistake with this, is they do the cross simplifying while it's division. And they go, oh, 3 goes into itself once and into 6 twice. You cannot cross simplify while it's still in its division form. You must wait until it's multiplication to try to simplify. In this case, we could not do any cross simplifying. This is a major mistake that people make. They cross simplify too soon while it's still division. Please change it to multiplication first, then look to see if you can cross simplify. Alright? So do I want to take this 7 and make it a 1 and that 42 a 6? The answer to that, no. The reason? We are still in division. We cannot cross simplify while it's in division. So instead, I take the 42g and the negative 14d, and I multiply it by 7g over negative 6. Now I'm perfectly free to do all the simplifying that I can, anywhere. For example, 7 goes into itself once and into 14 twice. Now I'm making it negative 2 because it was a negative 14 to begin with. 6 goes into itself once, but it was a negative, so I'll leave it negative. And into 42 7 times. And fractions multiply straight across, so this 7 and that g have to multiply by that 1 and that g. 7g times 1g. 7 times 1, the coefficients times each other will make 7. But don't forget, g times g makes g squared. Absolutely crucial. Many people forget g times g makes g squared. Then you've got negative 2 times negative 1. A negative times a negative makes a positive. And there is nothing that goes into both 2 and 7, so that's as simple as it gets. You do not have to worry about this being an improper fraction. It is okay to have improper fractions. Alright? This next scenario, I have a little term I like to call for division called the heart-shaped division. Now I would recommend that we change the subtraction to plus the opposite. And then, very similar to the distributive property, which makes sense because division is multiplication in disguise, take both of these top values and divide by the bottom. In other words, take that 9 and divide it by -3. A positive divided by a negative makes a negative, and 9 divided by 3 is 3, so that'd be -3. And then you also must do that side. So it's kind of a deformed looking heart right here. Maybe I'll try again, make it a little better. Yeah, it's still kind of wide just because of the X. Negative divided by a negative now makes a positive, and 3 goes into 27 9 times, but it has the X on it. Can't forget the X. What usually happens is people don't stop here. They go too far and they say the answer is 6x. But these are not like parts. They don't both have an X. You cannot put them together. We would typically put the variable expression part first. So we would say 9x plus -3 or 9x minus 3. So this isn't wrong. We just prefer to have the variables first. So again, recap this. This is not 9 minus 3. This is 9 divided by -3, which produces -3. This is -27 being divided by this -3 to produce a positive 9x. Don't forget your variable, and don't forget to watch your signs. Biggest mistakes are signs and variables. Another one involving the heart-shaped division, again, plus -125. You're going to take the 25d and divide it by -5. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. Still have the d. Plus, and then go -125 over -5. Negative divided by negative makes a positive. And 5 goes in 25 times. We have the variable first, so we're good. Last problem involves evaluating. -3 is going to go in for S and S. -1 has to go in for T. I would most definitely change that to plus -3. Substituting our values in, we end up with -3 plus the -3 times the -1 all over the 2 times the -3. One of the biggest mistakes, people want to add -3 and -3 right from the get-go. You got to do multiplication before the addition. That's order of operations. And negative times a negative makes a positive. You now have -3 plus a positive 3 on top. And you have a positive times a negative, which makes a negative. But once you've added the tops together, which cancel out, you've got 0 divided by anything. And 0 divided by anything will be 0. So you have now evaluated it. So just to recap, heart-shaped division, all the parts must be divided by that bottom number. Don't forget, they must be like parts to add. Change your signs if need be so you don't lose track of them. And always multiply by the reciprocal, and then look for what you can substitute or cancel out. Remember, g times g will make g squared.